have Charlene with Charming and Quaint Event Rentals. We have Cherish writer with Divine Inspirations, Planning and Florals. And we have Maggie with Camille's. Thank you guys so much for coming.
Thanks for having us.
The theme today is going to be about trends. So I'm going to start with Cherish because she just went to a really fun event in Florida, was it?
Yes, Orlando.
Oh, cool. And it's styled shoots across America. And they have all of the best vendors across America come and lead kind of like a styled shoot. Is that...
Yeah. So we had, obviously, we were there for the floral side, and so we had different sections of the venue that we were doing florals on. Okay. But they also had, your calligraphers, your rentals, your linens, all of those, like every element that you could think of as far as a wedding would actually go. Dresses, everything was there so that you could set it up like a wedding just for, shoots and stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun.
So in being in that shoot, did you were you able to participate with other florists that like usually you probably wouldn't be able to, right? Because you do the florals for a wedding, and then in that there was like a couple other people there doing them.
Yeah, we had 3 different teams of florists. So on our team, we actually had the biggest team because we had the biggest area. So there were 6 of us.
Oh wow.
So florists from all the way from California, all across the country. On our team that were there, we still keep in contact. We still we'll work with each other. Like if someone needs help, we'll, go to them and help each other. So we all work together on, our own tasks, from bouquets and boutonnieres of small things all the way up to, hanging installations and
very
fun things like that.
Must be fun to work with other florists and kind of see how they're doing things either the same or differently. And the theme this week is trends. So with that in mind, following these people then on Instagram and Facebook now and just seeing what they're doing in California and other parts of the States, what would you say is like an overall trend with florals? We'll start with florals because that's kind of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. So definitely there is a change and a shift within the florals. So bouquets are not as important anymore. So I'm finding, most brides and even bridesmaids are getting smaller bouquets. Some are eliminating a wedding party altogether on the planning side of it, or micro bouquets if they're doing anything at all.
Done with the 30-pound bouquets.
Done with the 30-pound bouquets, which I'm not sad about.
No, poor wrists by the end of portraits. They're like,
I know, exactly. But then they're putting their money toward, some of those bigger things, right? So instead of spending like $300, $400, $500 on a bouquet, you might still spend a couple $100 on a bouquet because it's smaller doesn't mean you're not having those nicer florals in there.
Which are maybe $10, $20 a stem, some of them.
Right, exactly. Especially if you're doing all orchids or all, peonies or something like that. But then going for like a statement piece, 1 or 2 statement pieces, one for your ceremony section and one for, your reception area, from hanging installations to columns to all those things where people walk in and say, wow. And, it's better to spend your money there and eliminate the boutonnieres and the corsages, I feel like destroyed anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, half the times the boutonnieres don't even make it to formal portraits. I feel like there is like a big trend, a big shift towards like having more of an experience. And we're seeing that with like live music, live painters, caricature people.
Yes.
And even something recently, my friend down in Miami, she went to this like bigwig wedding, and for the invite, they had sent out an item instead of an actual paper. They sent out like the Russian dolls, the ones
the nesting dolls,
and had all the information in there. So I feel like people are trending away from just like the very traditional things and making it more of a personalized experience.
Yeah, exactly. And that we actually encourage that. Let your guests have an experience, you know. Because that's what they're going to remember. That's what you're going to remember is the experience that you've had when you've been to a wedding. Nobody really is going to remember, what somebody else was wearing or, even what like a certain chair looks like, but they're going to remember the time that they had.
Yeah.
And so, definitely those experiences, from cigar rollers to live painters, right? To
the beverage doll
like
piece.
The beverage, yes. The beverage
Have you seen those though?
Or like this skirts of champagne, or like somebody carrying like oysters, like picking your own oyster, those kinds of fun things. Or even just getting a fun painting of just yourself.
Yeah.
Or even doing one at a wedding where they're having the guests paint like certain things on like a blank canvas. So
I've seen the fingerprints where it's like our, our family tree or our
Right.
friends or whatever, and people put their like thumbprint or whatever to make the leaves. That's fun.
Right.
Interactive.
Right, exactly. And then also just having something that is unique to that couple at the wedding, where they walk in and they're like, this is their wedding. I can tell because of whatever, it is.
Which I feel like that kind of segues nicely into rentals in the sense that creating the experience and really setting the stage for that is having good rentals and having things that are very personalized to the couple that really bring their vision to life, whether it be, lounge areas and chairs and things. And accents like that. So how does that play in? Like, how do you help brides and stuff like bring their concepts to life with those?
We are doing a lot more customization now. Everything is with your bars, your stage fronts, your stage walls behind
You guys
them.
build those?
We do.
Okay.
We do. We customize your bar, customize. It may be painting it. It may be that we're going to put a decal or wallpaper or even fabric.
Okay.
And then the fabric would carry on into your seating area with the pillows that match it and stuff like that. So your seating areas are getting bigger and
People are valuing that, having
Yes.
like a space where they can kind of hang out that's not just at the dinner table right in front of the DJ.
That's
you
right.
know?
Yeah.
So now, would you say that they're more utilized during cocktail hour, or people come and enjoy them even throughout the reception, these little like lounge
The
areas?
entire time they are, and they kind of seek them out. You almost have to chase someone out so
Yeah.
that you can have
Yeah.
a seat. But that's, I think, too, why they're getting larger.
Yeah.
And so more people can enjoy them, and you want your guests to have somewhere to sit that they can enjoy the band, that they may not want to dance, but they may want to stay, sit
hang
down and enjoy it.
So now, other than obviously like the chairs and these lounge areas and the pillows, like you said, in the bars, do you guys also provide rentals for like the chargers that go under plates and things like that?
We do the entire tabletop,
Okay.
chargers, your goblets, all of it. And a big thing that we're seeing now are the naked tables, just using just your table, no linens, and letting all your pretty, dinnerware and everything speak for itself.
Interesting. So that would be like wood, like farm tables
Yes.
and things like that.
We have several options of your farm tables and pretty tables too.
Cool.
So
As far as like colors and things that you're saying that you're probably always getting new products and trying to stay ahead of the trends.
Trying to.
What are some things that you're seeing that are either making a comeback, like color wise? I know recently I've seen a lot of those blue and white vases, kind of like
Yes.
vintage looking vases and
Yes.
stuff. Are those still in? Are those on their way
a
out?
little bit, I would say
Yeah.
they're probably, unfortunately, on their way out, good as we love them. But
But that was kind of a 2024, 2025
Yeah.
thing. So now 2025, 2026, I've seen a lot more like reds and statement colors, like more bold colors. Are you?
we're trying to pull our brides in with that. We're not seeing an awful lot of it locally yet.
Okay.
We're seeing a lot of lamps being used,
Okay.
changing the lampshade, again using the fabric and stuff on the lampshade to make it pull in with their seating arrangement, and just we're still seeing a lot of blue.
Yeah.
A lot of blue.
Okay, well, we're in coastal
I
Carolina.
think we're all probably a
Yeah.
little tired of blue.
Yeah.
But
Coastal Carolina, I feel like blue is very safe. It's a very
Yeah.
safe color. We've got a lot of beach weddings and,
Right.
Carolina blue, right? So it's, I feel like blue will kind of always be there. I feel like there is a little bit of a move away from like the really muted tones that we had a couple of
Yes.
years ago. And people are, even if it's not really vibrant like red or orange, they are having little pops of color, a little bit more like purples and blues. I've seen a lot of delphinium being used, which I mean, again, back
Yes.
to blue, but I love, there's like
Yeah.
the purplish delphinium too.
Yeah.
But I love delphinium. I'm a big
Yeah,
fan.
definitely. I don't think we're ever, being on the coast, I don't think we're ever going to get away from a coastal wedding. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, that's
Right,
why
yeah.
people come here, right? We have destination brides coming to the coast for coastal weddings. But I do agree, like, the colors are changing. We're still going to see those blues always, but the color palettes are definitely changing more to, I want more color, which, woo!
Yeah,
Thank goodness.
yeah.
But also, like, the monochromatic colors are still
Yes.
and like really,
The metallics.
and stuff like that are really definitely still in and coming in.
What are you guys seeing? I mean, obviously you guys do brides dresses, but we'll just talk about bridesmaid dresses for now for fun because of coloring. What are you guys seeing in bridesmaid dresses?
We've seen a lot of different things. I will say most recently we've gotten like the mix of textures.
Okay.
We don't carry too many textures in store, but we do have like a velvet versus a chiffon versus a satin. And they'll go for like the golds, but I want it in bronze and gold and then like a more muted tone. We're still catching a lot of the muted tones, or we want everybody in a different color. We want them in light blue, hot pink, yellow, green, and that like more like colorful pops, like spring-esque versus like big pops of color like red.
Yeah.
But we're also seeing like the decline in bridal parties in general. And just like
And I feel like there's a lot of like black and white weddings now too. So we're like the whole bridal party is just wearing black, which I think is beautiful. I love that.
gorgeous, very stylish. But we don't see those in our store. We don't see the full black and white for bridesmaids at least, just because buying a little black dress is easy for some people.
Yes. So as far as just to segue over into like bridal gowns and dresses, what have you guys seen as far as that is concerned? Like I feel like I've seen personally just like more of the introduction of like two pieces that you can, like a corset and a skirt or something, and bows. But again,
everybody wants to customize.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing is like you guys were saying unique. Yes, everybody wants to go. Everybody comes in and they're like, I don't want a dress that everybody has, which is obviously hard because
there's only so many.
We have a select number of dresses and we can only customize to a certain point, but we can customize. So everybody's working on the sleeves. And I'm telling you what, we have bought sleeves for coming like the fall, just because it has become such a trend. The cap, the fold, the bishop, the short, I'm talking it all. And we do like detachables, which can be fully sewn into the gown, but to
Gives
have
you
them
the
detachable gives you the option to wear, or it gives you like that two look option. And then we are seeing more of a trend towards the detachable trains, but less of a movement there just because they are very heavy. And typically the gowns come with a train already.
Yes.
So to have a train over your train and you're already with a gorgeous train, so it's just different. But the sleeves have been absolutely insane. I will say I haven't seen too many separate pieces. Certain people will ask for tops and bottoms, but we don't. A lot of our designers don't carry them just because it's a little bit harder to like. You can't really mix and match with that. Like you've got a gown.
Colors of white.
You've got a gown with a top that comes with a certain bottom, but you won't necessarily get a different bottom from a different designer that's going to look right with that gown. What we have seen though is a lot of our gowns will come in different materials. So like I have a gown in store that is brocade and white, but it comes in this metallic-y blue and silver. It's absolutely gorgeous. But we have a swatch card of what that blue and metallic silver is. And then we have a different gown that has a pink and gold, like a rosy color that can also come in the white like brocade versus just the colors. So we do have a lot of that versus like
Do you have brides like picking colors outside of white?
Yes.
Okay. Is that like becoming a trend, or is that like has that always been like that?
It's kind of always been like that. There's the girls that'll come in and say, "I want a pink dress," or "I want a pink. I want a pink veil." We do have a gown that is white and blue, but it kind of looks like that piece of china. It's a gorgeous printed organza, and it has these blue floral patches of florals on them. But we also have like big pink ball gowns, and then we have like the blush tones, so that lean a little bit pink but aren't pink. Right? And then if somebody doesn't want that traditional white on white, or we actually don't carry a single gown in our store that is considered white.
Yes.
Everything that we have is ivory.
Okay.
Every gown that is that ivory on ivory look is what is in our store. We have one gown in our entire store that is that traditional diamond white. Just because it's, when you photograph a diamond white,
it looks bluish.
It looks blue. It will almost every time look blue, versus every other gown that we have in our store that's ivory. And then we do have like ivory over nude. But people are leaning more towards that ivory on ivory again, or placing a colored veil or something along those
Do you guys
lines.
like carry rehearsal dresses as well as reception dresses in addition to bridal gowns, or are those like sourced elsewhere?
We have a small collection of them. I wouldn't say we have a ton. We do have people who will buy another wedding gown that doesn't have a train or that has a chiffon skirt or that's fitted. But we do have a little selection of like minis and like maybe not necessarily reception style, but rehearsal.
Yeah.
Definitely just like that clean line look.
Yeah.
But nothing too
Yeah.
out there.
Cool.
Just because our designers don't really have a full collection of it yet. But we're seeing more trends towards it, but it's just different.
Yeah, very nice. Awesome. Well, going back to you, Cherish, just to like tap back into things that are from a planner's perspective, in or out. I feel like, have you seen any bouquet tosses or garter tosses lately? I feel like I haven't seen one in the last like 20 weddings I've done.
Right. No. Garter tosses, I want to say, are like gone. They're gone.
It's just awkward.
Again, not sad about that.
I haven't been to a wedding in the last 3 years that had one.
Right. Let's keep them gone, please.
Yes, please.
It is really awkward.
It is strange.
And bouquet tosses are definitely like on the
Decline.
major decline. Yeah, most people are not doing those.
I've been seeing like dedications where they like dedicate the bouquet to the mom.
Oh, and I love that so
Yeah,
much.
that's really sweet.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
sweet, yeah.
Or passing out some roses or something like that. But most people, and they don't want to interrupt their dance section, for tossing a bouquet. And they don't, I don't know. They don't usually have a lot of single ladies. It's just weird now. So most people are not.
Well, and then
not
you bring
doing
up a good point too. Like, all the single ladies, and then if it's like an older crowd,
right.
Yeah, and I feel
There's
like
like
people are
3 people
waiting now. Yes, exactly. People are waiting longer, I feel like, to get married now too. Like, I have a handful of younger 20s brides, but I feel like most of them are like waiting until they're done with college and things like that. And at that point, it does seem just like, it seems so like 90s. Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like favors are another thing that are like, hopefully like koozies will eventually.
Right. I'm still seeing a lot of koozies.
I will say that's the only party favor that I actually enjoy is a koozie.
Yeah,
I will
that's
say.
so funny.
I have like 4 in the back of my car.
I
as we speak.
Well,
too, but
never too many, but I feel like favors are one thing, and then one thing that's been really fun. And do you guys do audio guest books as rentals or no?
We do not.
But you've seen them.
Not
that's been a new thing. Is like
The telephone booths.
yeah.
We did a style shoot with a telephone booth, and they are so much fun.
They
They're a
are,
lot
and
of
I think
fun.
it's just keeping up with the times in the sense that half the time the guest book is either not written in at all or just so scarcely that it's kind of half empty.
Right.
And doing something like that where it's like multimedia that people actually consume still, like and
Yeah.
look at or listen to or whatever. That's that, and then photo.
The photo,
booths,
like the photo
strips.
booth, with the little cameras. Those two are the two main ones that I
That do
continue
really
to
well.
see. Yeah.
I love those too. And then what other trends have you seen recently that you're like, wow, I hope this sticks around, or let's please move on past this?
right. Well, it's so with the favors, like I said, I think it's more moving to almost like a late night snack. We're seeing a lot of those, but they're like snacks to go, right? So we had somebody who knew somebody who did honey, so it was like all honey jars and like popcorn that was like their special popcorn, and the guests would take those to go, or cookies, or one bride they have a chip company, they were gonna do chips, but it's like snacks to go is the favor. And that's kind of fun because as guests are leaving, especially if they've had a lot to drink, maybe they can have a little snack to like settle that stuff down, right? But
And it's a consumable,
it's
like they use it and then they don't have to think about like, I had someone that gave me like a ornament one time for like my tree, and you know what I mean? Like I'm only using that once a year, or like if that, and then like, I don't know. So I feel like having things like that where like they can use it, or like the cookies with their initials on it, those are cute too.
Those are fun. Yeah.
Those are really fun.
Yeah, so those are fun. And then I do think that like having a wedding that is unique, like finding something, it doesn't necessarily have to be, that you're customizing necessarily a piece, but what is unique to you. I think one thing that we encourage our clients and our couples to do is like stop necessarily looking at what Pinterest is saying and what is it that you want, right? Like what do you want?
I'm tired of AI.
Yeah,
pictures
like,
of gowns, and I'm
exactly.
like,
That's not real. That's not real.
Yeah.
It is so fun, but let's get rid of AI.
Bye.
Exactly. Let's get rid of that. Stop
Oh
looking
my
at
gosh.
those photos. It's not real. Yeah. Be yourself.
Yeah. Well, and you know, when it comes to being yourself and doing things like what you do in the rental industry, how will you buy, if someone's like, I really like this, will you buy it and then rent it out for somebody else? Or do you ever like work with the bride where if it's a really specialty piece or item that they want, that they can bring it in and have that alongside your rentals?
The biggest majority of the things that we have are because a bride asked for them.
Oh, okay.
And so we've built it.
Interesting.
We've been very fortunate and been associated with some great carpenters and stuff that pretty much let me design whatever I want, and then they'll build it. Now I always say, now we built this.
Yeah.
Not we, but we did
you're out there
design
with the
it.
camera.
We did design it, yes.
Yes.
And then sometimes we do have to do that. But I let my brides kind of push me in the direction of what we actually end up offering. Because they're the ones that are going to rent it.
Yeah,
they're the ones that
exactly.
it's important to.
I will say we probably do the exact same thing with like
Yeah.
our gowns. When somebody's like, "Do you have this gown?" and if at least two people ask
Right.
for the same thing, I'm like,
Yep.
you know what? Maybe we should bring that style of gown in.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
we have something similar, but they're not. It's not the same one, and we will bring in another gown
Sure.
just for it, because.
What is the range on gown prices? Because, you know, I mean, things have changed. I've been married for 10 years, so things have changed.
I will say, so our sales floor ranges from $1,000 being the minimum to I think our most expensive dress in the store is $4,500.
Okay.
But we do have a selection of gowns that are from past seasons that can be bought off the floor that go down as far as like $199.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
But they're like last season style or whatever?
Correct.
Okay.
So they're older styles and they cannot be reordered. So they're considered like a discontinued gown. So we cannot get a brand new one in. And
we can't get a different size.
We can't
What
get a
you
different
is what
size,
you
color,
get. Yeah.
nothing. Now, what you do in alterations is up to you.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to bring it in, you want to let it out, an alterations professional can tell you those things.
Do you guys have someone there that does alterations, or do you guys outsource that?
We outsource all of it.
Even
we
like
used to.
bustling?
We don't have anybody that does it now. We used to have it in store, and a lot of our consultants. We have a couple consultants who've been doing this 30 plus years.
Yeah, wow.
So they typically know. You know, hey, your girl can put a bustle in up here or down here. And I've worked with the alterations department when we used to have it previously, and I can kind of tell you what they can and can't do within reason.
Because some dresses can't get a bustle, right? I mean, there's some dresses that, you'd be surprised.
You'd be really shocked. We have this gown, and our alterations girl, it was a few years ago, we had this gown. I'm talking, it had an inner train, and it's all sheer. So it's that window pane, you can see through, and it's lace. So it had an inner layer, and then it had another like 3 feet of gown. So they had to bustle that first layer with 4 points on sheer fabric, or like that tulle, and then pull the second layer up.
That's an art form.
It is,
Yeah.
and a lot of girls don't realize that it's expensive.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
is. It gets expensive,
Okay,
but
so-
we do outsource a lot of that for us.
I had a bride, this was a couple years ago. She had a David's bridal dress, but I think she took it to a separate person to get altered. And she didn't try it on after that. I don't know why, but when she tried it on her wedding day, whoever had bustled it or like had put the bustle in had caught a piece of that fabric like over to the side. So when she put it on, the whole dress like the pocket was popping weird. It was like, it was so weird. It was like something was hung up. And she was a really laid back bride, and everyone was panicking. And she was like the only one that was chill. And she's like, "Here, grab a pair of scissors and see if you can find the thread that's like clipped on there." And I went and clipped like a single thread, and the thing fell like normally. And I was like, "Okay, that worked out." But that was
safety pin that feature
Yes,
later.
yes. Well, no, I mean, I think it was just that it had been, that
Yeah.
one strand had been caught. But it is, I mean, done incorrectly, it can really ruin the look of a dress. Done correctly, it really can add so much to address, especially like you were saying with those layers. I've seen where they look just so beautiful.
We've had brides too that have bought our gowns, and we have a preferred list of girls that we send our alterations to.
Yeah.
So we're like, hey, this is our list. This is who we recommend that you would go to and get your alterations. One of our brides went outside of that, which is perfectly fine.
Use at your own risk.
Do your own research. And she had gone to this girl before for other things, but she took her gown there. And I think it was like a month before the wedding, she calls us, and she's an older bride. And she was like, it's ruined.
Oh, no.
It's completely ruined. And
Oh my God.
we
It
got her
was.
in, and we got another gown, and we did her alterations in our store, and she actually invited the consultant to the wedding. And she was like, I just need you there. I was like, oh, yes. It's just one of those things. I will say a lot of brides who come in, I mean, you just create a connection with the woman who sells you your gown.
Yeah.
I mean, you're in there for an hour and a half making one of the grandest purchases, of your life.
Wardrobe,
Of your wardrobe. Most girls will never see another like $3,000 gown in their wardrobe. And so I've had a lot of girls ask me, oh my God, don't you want to be there? Don't you want to help me get it on? And I'm like,
kind of.
yes. But I'd be there every Saturday bustling dresses.
I mean, that could be like a whole service, honestly. I mean, because planners are usually the ones stuck doing it, but at the same time, the planner needs to be elsewhere, usually at that time,
I've bustled every gown at every wedding I've ever been to.
Of course
just
you have.
because
That
they're
is
like,
so
oh,
funny.
Maggie knows how to do those things.
We got you.
But it's just one of those things, and a lot of people are super scared of the wedding gown.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, I've spent so much money on this. But because I've been in them and moved them and thrown them and zipped them and clipped them, I don't have that nervousness about, okay, we're going to loop that around and it's going to stay on there and it's not going to fall off. So a lot of people ask me.
Now, as far as like wedding dresses in general, are we still seeing, I feel like I'm still seeing like the big trains and the like big gowns. Are you seeing, I know boho was like really in and still in for some people, like that boho chic where it's a little bit like
Everything
less...
almost every bride that comes in wants a satin gown.
Okay.
And it can be satin fitted or satin ball gown. It can be huge, it could be small, it could have no train, little train.
All satin.
All satin. That's not true. I mean, we do have quite
Other
a few
things,
that
yes.
also come
But that
through
is
with
what you're
that
seeing a
like
lot of.
more lace, more sparkle, more color. But a lot of what we are seeing right now has been satin with a fun sleeve or a sheer back,
To
the
customize
boning,
it.
the basque waist, but they are typically wanting that clean all over look.
Yes.
And it's just, we have a ton.
We have a ton of
We
it.
have a ton.
We touched about the prices of dresses. Now, just to bounce over to you, as far as rentals are concerned, what can people anticipate? Like, what does your average client, I guess, I would say, spend on rentals? I mean, if they're gonna have a bar and the whole setup for a 150-person wedding on a Saturday, realistically, I mean, I think people, they don't realize all the moving pieces. I mean, you guys have to have movers, you have,
Right.
all this storage.
Lots
all
of
the-
young men.
Lots of young men with good backs
Yes.
doing this stuff. So there's a whole crew. You guys have to, do you show up the day before to set it up?
If allowed, we do prefer that. It just depends, the venue very much dictates whether or not we can come the
Do
day
that.
before.
Sometimes they have
But-
other weddings.
Right.
sometimes.
Well, and just whatever their, whatever their rules
Policy.
and, yeah.
And then you guys usually pick up the following day.
Sometimes at night,
Oh,
a
wow.
lot of times at night,
late
depending
hours,
on
guys.
depending on that venue. A lot of your venues aren't open on Sundays, so they want you to pick it up on Saturday night after the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
It just depends. If you have bar and a large lounge, you're gonna expect anywhere between $3,000 and $6,000. It just depends, and then it's gonna add to it depending on how far away you are, for the travel and.
Yeah, and how many spaces you may want to have. I know I did a wedding recently. I can't remember who was the rental company, but it was at Barnett Rock Creek, and they had all these different areas, and it just created such a flow, for the guests. And I think it was an October wedding, so the weather was really nice outside. And then and just segueing back over to you, Cherish, as far as planning, do you offer some rentals to people as well, like linens or anything of that sort, or do you just do planning and then you refer out for the rentals?
Yeah, as far as the planning side of it goes, obviously I have connections with like Nuage and BBJ, and so I do pass my discount on to them, but I don't actually keep in-house rentals. just because it wasn't worth it for me. I don't have the space. I don't have, the team or the staff, right, to keep up with rentals. So I will absolutely outsource for rentals. I think it's better too, because then they can have a better selection, right, rather than just what I have. Now on the floral side of my business, as far as rentals go, and I'm putting air quotes around that, right? Yeah, it's like the vases, candles, all of those things obviously come with the floral side of it. So if you think florals, if you think, the decor of your tables, then that is something that we do. But no linens. That's not something.
As far as like centerpieces go, before it used to be we'd take the bridesmaids bouquets and make them the centerpieces, and now we're losing bridesmaids. So what are we doing? What are we trending towards for centerpieces?
So some of the centerpieces are still, like, we're seeing a lot of low lush centerpieces. We're still seeing a lot of bud vases, although those are starting to somewhat move out.
I love those, though.
I do like them.
They're simple and quaint.
They're simple, yes. But so it's a lot of low lush, but then still some of those elevated centerpieces as well.
As a photographer, like, I personally hated, and I feel like it's kind of gone now, thankfully, but the really tall ones, you know what I'm saying? Like, those ones drove me crazy for a while.
Yeah, they're not going away.
They're not? Okay. I haven't seen one in a while. Yeah. But those ones, just like, they're so...
Yeah, there's still some... I mean, as a matter of fact, just for that styled shoot, we were still doing some elevated centerpieces. But yeah, a lot of the low lush are definitely really, really in. You're still going to see those elevated centerpieces, but the low lush, whether they're smaller or whether it's a whole tablescape, are still in. And obviously it just depends on your budget, what you're going to do there.
Yeah. So. Now, are people still, I mean, I know colored linens and just like even the table runners or the printed linens, like, are those kind of making a comeback? Are people going back more towards like just the plain whites?
No, we're still seeing a lot of patterned linens. As a matter of fact, we have a wedding coming up that we're doing a lot of the patterns. And I think like those specialty linen companies, and we're even seeing some of the local rental companies getting some of those patterned linens. And I think those are still definitely...
Like L&L and Party Suppliers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Party Suppliers, I know for sure. I don't know if L&L has any, but I know Party Suppliers does. They're being used a lot in cocktail hour, right? Dressing up cocktail hour is definitely something, and I love it because if you've been to a wedding and you're just standing at a cocktail table, it's like, I really need to sit down because these shoes are killing me, right? For an hour, just standing up as a guest, so now like dressing up that cocktail table, with lower tables, with those patterned linens and the chairs, rentals, right? The rentals, all the lounge sets. So they're definitely, patterned linens are still in, and I love them. Yeah. But not every table.
Yeah,
necessarily.
No. Yeah, I know. Sometimes I've seen where it's just like the head table, which I think is good because you don't want it to be too busy either. And if you have a pattern linen on a table, then anything that you place on that table is then kind of competing with that pattern.
Right. You definitely have to think through that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And as far as, going back over to you and, patterns on dresses, what are you guys seeing for bridesmaid dresses patterns? Like, are we talking like florals? I know 90s are kind of making a comeback. So are you seeing like funky patterns as far as that's concerned?
The only thing with the florals, like, our designers don't typically carry them, but if a bride wants the floral party, they're typically doing that. Everybody's in a different style. Yeah. Or you won't necessarily see everybody's in the same floral gown.
Thankfully, because I think that would look really rough together.
It would definitely be busy, and then like obviously like, this bride's in all yellow, and then this one's in blue floral, and then this one's in solids and stripes or whatever.
Breaking it up a little bit.
But for us, I mean, we've done like textures and the tiered layers. But we don't typically see the patterns in bridesmaids. And honestly, I don't typically love the patterns in bridesmaids just because it creates a busy scene. Yeah. I have seen some where the florals were pretty and light.
Just not too contrasty. And,
it just takes away from the bride, in my opinion. And the bride should stand out.
Yeah. So what are we seeing in like bridal hairdos? I know we don't have hair and makeup here today, but I feel like I'm seeing a lot of updos, which we have historically. I feel like they're kind of safe for here because it can be windy or hot and sweaty at any point in time.
Everybody has done, and I can't do a slick back. That is just not ever been my style. But almost every bride that I have comes in for that ball gown, the satin ball gown, and we're gonna do the slick back Hollywood waves.
Yes.
Hollywood waves.
Yeah.
I'm like, you have face frame.
Yes. Yes.
Leave a little hair out.
Leave a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
You know, and then do you guys sell veils too?
Oh, yes.
Yes. So what are we seeing with veil trends? I feel like, you know, the really long, intricate veils were in there for a minute. Are we...
I will say it typically depends on your bride.
Yeah.
I have some brides who are like, I will be wearing a cathedral length veil.
They are all taking it off. They are all taking it off after portraits because those are
100%.
heavy and annoying.
100% they're taking it off. And a lot of the gowns too. So like if you have a fully beaded gown and it's this, and this, you don't need a veil that has 50,000 things on the back of it.
Right.
And I'm just like, let's do a fingertip. Let's do a fingertip.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about linens and something that I've seen. I mean, it's been around for a while and I love it. They do it a lot at Atrium. It's like the draping, the draperies. Do you guys offer drapery and like curtains and stuff? Because I feel like people are using that more to like really set the
We are starting to get into that
Yeah.
because you are seeing more and more of it. And yes, we don't have many vendors at home that offer it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
It's a nice way to like
we are
stand
seeing
out.
it, even for like your photo op and stuff like that. It's just so pretty.
Oh, like the
Softens
back,
everything.
like
Yes.
a backdrop for the
Yes.
bride and groom. Interesting. Cool.
I went to a wedding where the venue offered it at the top, the like draping of the ceiling. That way you didn't see what was above.
Yeah.
And it was $4,500 just to have it moved into the room. And I was
Yeah.
like, that I just
And
can
you're
imagine.
thinking of like men on ladders and
I can
attaching these
imagine.
things.
And I was like, honestly, they should probably charge more for that. Because it was
Yeah.
a huge, I mean, it was a 250 guest wedding. I mean, it was
Oh
a
my.
huge space. But the drink, it was gorgeous.
I think some people
It was
like
worth it.
I think
He
some
said it
people
was
are
absolutely
very
stunning.
like
Really does
realistic. I think some people are very realistic about what weddings are going to cost and they set their budgets accordingly.
Agreed.
I think some people are very out of touch with what their vision is and what that's going to cost them. And you know, I see people cutting corners in all the wrong places. And the number one place that I see people cutting corners that I just no, don't do this if you're a bride. A planner or at least a day of month of a coordinator, an event manager, you know,
Right.
that is for me. You see these brides that are like, you know, we can just, you know, my Aunt Sally's gonna do it, or
Aunt Sally
so and
cannot do
so,
it.
or I'm gonna do my own florals, and
Yeah.
you know, I don't think really with the clients that we work with, most of them are realistic about it and are saving up or have planned, have family that's helping them to really make their day and their dream come true, and they're willing to, you know, hey, these are my vision, this is my vision board, can you guys help me bring it together, and really do value the expertise that, you know, we bring to the table as far as that's concerned. And even just things like timeline creation, you know, brides don't realize how every little minute matters in
I
the
was like,
day.
ChatGPT will give you one.
Yeah.
If you put in
yes.
some things, it'll give you one, which is absolutely insane to think.
Yeah.
But
I'm
it
gonna have to
does.
see what it pulls up.
Well,
I'm
and-
curious now.
Well, yeah, me too. And the other thing is there's a bunch of little nuances, and I feel like
Right.
that really is like the human touch.
The thing is, you
use-
have to put everything in there.
Yeah.
If you have one music change that you don't put on your timeline,
Yes.
it may or may not happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Everything has to be
Every
on
little thing. I had a wedding recently where the bride, you know, she said she wanted to do a first look. Okay, so I had first look with the groom. And then right before, she's like, oh yeah, look, I want to do a first look with my bridesmaids and with my dad.
Oh my.
And so, and
That wasn't in the timeline. That wasn't in the timeline.
and theoretically, yes, you know, that's just 2 more photos and you're already ready. But they don't realize, like, it takes a moment. All the bridesmaids are reacting.
step out of the room.
Dad's now
set it up.
crying. Yeah, you got to set it up. So that's like 15, 20 minutes, which might as well be an eternity in wedding timeline, you know, because in some of these, I feel like some, you are really good about having a well-balanced timeline, but I feel like some timelines, they just get so heavy between, you know, portraits and then toasts and cake and welcome speech and the prayer that they only have an hour of dancing, and the
Right.
bride and groom wanted a party, and it really is like, I mean, I had a bride I was talking to the other day, thankfully it was a typo, but it had 30 minutes of dancing. It was supposed to be an hour and 30 minutes, but that to me still seems light, you know. I feel like 2 hours of dancing should be a minimum. What do you see on timelines, Cherish?
Yeah, typically that is about it, like 2 hours of dancing. And I do have to ask the couple, like, what is important to you? Like, we have to start there. What is the most important thing to you within your reception, right? and then talk through them. Okay, well, this is how this is going to look if we do this. Something that I am seeing also as a trend is the private cake cutting, which I love.
Me too.
I love private eating. I've seen private eating.
And private eating,
yeah,
we do that too. But the private cake cutting is so nice because that can be done at any time, right? Like, let's whisk the bride and groom away. Let's do that photo real quick. There's not a gazillion people we're trying to coordinate with. So that helps with the timeline, actually doing that private cake cutting.
And even like timeline overlapping in the sense that toasts are always given by the people that are closest to the bride and groom.
Right.
They usually eat first, right? So bride and groom eats, and then dad, mom, brother, sister, and immediate bridal party. So those are the people that are most likely to give speeches. So with that being said, while table 16 is getting their plates or just sitting down with their plates, table 1 and 2, who are in the speeches, are done, and they can stand up and give speeches while people are eating. That way you don't have to wait an hour until dinner's over to do that. So that helps too, so that the couple can get the most out of their time.
I always prep that way. Like, as soon as your last table is seated, I give them a couple minutes to get settled, and then we're going to go straight into speeches, because that's why by the time speeches are done, table 16 or whatever is done, or most of the way done with their food. And then you still have father-daughter dance, mother-son dance, right? And so by that time that's done, everybody's done eating and they're ready to dance. So that helps with the timeline.
Have you seen a decline in like the super formal family pictures?
So,
because I've gone to one wedding where it was like, hey, whatever.
So that's
and then one where it was like everybody stand. Okay, now 2 people leave and 2 people come.
So that would be called like documentary style photography, where we're not going to pose anything at all. And I think a lot of photographers, at least here, try and capture things documentary style where they should, and then also then do prompt. We call it like prompting more than like posing for the couples. For the other things. And a blend of the two is how I would describe my photo style. Those photos, those formal portraits, mom wants those, grandma wants those. I think that those are here to stay, realistically. Like, I do know that some brides and grooms like maybe don't feel that way, and again, like, that's very documentary style. Like, there are maybe a handful of people that don't want those, but I always, when I'm taking photos, I'll do a photo of the bride with mom, a photo of the bride with the dad, with both of them, with brother alone, with the whole family. I like to give them a lot of options, because they have a little shout out for Mother's Day or for Father's Day on Facebook or whatever, or maybe people have a different relationship with their mom than their dad.
Right.
I mean, every person actually that you've met has a different relationship with each person. You know what I mean? And each person is perceived different. Have you heard that? Like, each person is perceived differently by each person you meet. So to honor those relationships, I think, going back to like bridal party, I have seen like a big move away from like a bridal party. There are still some people that have the 12-person bridal party. I'm like, this is...
We had an 18 group with tuxedos and bridesmaids, and the bride, it was 18 total, and I was like, wow.
And it's just about being like realistic about what that means for you as a couple. That means that we have this many people that you're directly coordinating, and that you're relying on to like, and...
It was a lot of tuxedos.
It's a lot.
The tuxedos are harder than the bridesmaids, to be honest.
Yeah. So where do you guys refer people? Do you refer people out to like Men's Warehouse or like Indochino?
We do tuxedo rentals.
Oh, what?
Yes. We have tuxedo rentals. We also do have, we go through Jim's formal wear. Okay. So we have tuxedos that you can also purchase. Like if the groom wants to buy his, but everybody else wants to rent theirs. That's definitely something they can do.
But something that I ran into in a wedding that we were in recently, my husband was best man for his friend's wedding, was that it was actually cheaper to buy it, I think, than rent it.
Sometimes. It depends on what suit you're looking at, what color you're looking at, and all those types of things. If you're getting the vest, the tie, the shirt, the jacket, the pants, it's definitely going to be cheaper to buy the whole thing.
And he's like really tall too, so I feel like it was like harder for him to like find something.
Well, and a lot of people don't understand that a rental, like when you get a 36 regular, it doesn't come tailored. It doesn't come like we have the fitted styles, but if you're like my husband is a 50 here and a 32.
Yeah, my husband's a surfer, so same thing.
He's just like, I mean, a triangle. And it's just like a lot of people don't understand that you're gonna look like a little bit of a old timey pimp.
Yes.
If you put on that 50 rental, just because it's not gonna be tailored. But if the groom gets his, and his is tailored, and his is exactly how he likes it,
That's, yeah. Who cares what the groomsmen look like?
I mean, we want
You
them
guys
to
are
look,
just accessories.
they took that jacket off so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we've only had like maybe a handful of times where the suit has actually come back and it's been destroyed.
Yeah.
But
I
this
love
is-
too, like the tuxes and the suits that have like the cool prints
Ooh,
on the
yeah.
inside.
We have a few of those.
Those are fun.
But most of those I will
Little
say I think
flavor.
are for purchase.
Yeah.
Right.
But and then prom season comes around and rentals are just like absolutely insane. Every boy comes in 2 days before the prom and he's
Of
like,
course.
oh yeah, I gotta have a tux by Friday. I'm like,
So
oh,
funny.
you're doing great.
Oh my gosh. So going back to the theme of trends and things, I just want to touch base on rentals again one more time, because I feel like I've been seeing like the boho chic, the coastal chic, like boho vibe is not going away, right? Like rattan chairs. I mean, we're sitting in like rattan kind of chairs now. Like how would you describe most of your rentals, or the vibe that most couples are choosing when it comes to that?
We are seeing a lot of your coastal influences, a lot of the caning.
Yeah.
We have bars that have caning
Seen
options.
those. I love those. Oh,
Yes,
really good.
we have bars that have oyster shell options. We have several of our bars have the removable panels in them, and then we can take them out. We can customize the panel. We can wallpaper it. We can paint it. We can put your decal of your crest on it.
I like
It
the
just-
wallpapering. I've seen that kind of
Yeah.
recently on the bars and stuff.
It's gorgeous.
Big. It's
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
Everybody's doing it now.
Well,
So
it's
pretty.
I like it.
It's so
It's just
pretty.
a way to create like a customization for your wedding and not, oh, we have something that nobody else has ever had because
Yes.
Right.
this is our wallpaper.
And I feel like for a while their weddings were very carbon copy. Like they were,
Right.
you know, you'd
I
walk
agree.
in and
I
it was
agree.
like the same
Right.
kind of bouquet and the same kind of dress.
That
and the
neutral, muted,
Yes.
everybody's
Yes.
doing the same thing.
Same, yes.
Agreed.
And the same furniture.
And the
For
same
the longest
furniture.
time,
Yes.
everybody was getting. They would see it on Instagram, and that's what they wanted. They walked. I mean, it was they had a go-to, and I see that moving away from that now. Lots of color with your furniture.
Velvets and stuff too
Yes,
coming back.
yes.
Do you have like couches, like vintage sofas that you bring?
Yes,
I love
lots.
those.
I love the vintage
Yes.
sofas.
Yeah, a
And
vintage
vintage is
sofa
where
and
we
the audiobook
started.
with like the old vintage
That's what
phone.
we did sit in a
Yeah.
with a
salon sheet.
lamp.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
I love
Vintage is where we started.
Okay.
And now it is finally coming back again.
Yeah.
It had gone away for quite a while, and we have some. We will continue to listen to our brides as to what they like, and so we will continue to to
Move with
purchase
the
those
trends.
things and have them for them. But yeah, we're just seeing a lot of color come into and not so much linen anymore.
Yeah.
A lot more color with your pillows and your lamps.
Yeah. So again, my good friend who lives down in Miami went to like a really big wedding recently that was a very, very like high-end wedding, the one with the nesting dolls.
Oh, yeah.
As the invites, and it was in an art museum, which I thought was really cool. So people I feel like are opting for venues to have them in historic parks or art museums and different locations outside of just like a church or an actual wedding venue. So I think that's really fun. But one of the accents that she said she saw a lot of, she sent me pictures, of course, because I'm like, send me pictures of the wedding. Really like wild, bright florals. And the table was a glass table, or sorry, not a glass table, a mirror table. So it was a mirror. And so like everything was like all the flowers and stuff were reflecting. Lots of like disco balls, which again, going back to like 90s and like metallic colors and things like that. So that was a lot of fun. She sent that to me. But I think it's just so fun how people are personalizing it. And it's not, you walk in and it's like, oh, this is cool. This is different, and it's, you like each wedding can really like shine and stand out with these different pieces, highly customizable.
Right. Well, and that's where a good, event designer comes in, right? Because
Cherish Reuter with Divine Inspirations, planning and florals.
like the Lord of the Rings wedding that we just did,
What? Where was this?
Yeah,
What?
the atrium. So it's not out yet because we're hoping to get published, but transforming from what
That's the perfect venue for that.
It really was. It was so great. We created like trees and all kinds of stuff. Like, it was about the experience, about walking in.
Did they walk down the aisle, of course, to like the music and stuff?
Yes, of course.
Did they had a videographer?
Yes.
Thank goodness.
So,
okay, I
yeah.
am pleased. Once it's like published or whatever,
Yes.
I want to see all the pictures.
Absolutely. But the whole point was you walk in and like this is wow.
You're in the Shire.
You're in like, I'm in a different world. And that was the goal, was for
Yeah.
people to walk in and think they're in a different world, but then also seeing all the little tiny details of like, oh my gosh, the tables are named after, you know, Middle Earth names, you know,
Yes.
and things like that. So, but a good designer is going to be able to do that. Like, hey, let's
Dive
do
into
this,
that.
right? Let's think of something
Are
different.
you a Lord of the Rings fan?
I am not.
Did you tap into your sons for inspiration? Did they watch that?
I
when they were
literally
younger?
just like had to research and like looked up like things about the movie and watched clips of the movie.
I'm sure the
and
bride
like
was super stoked. That's
literally
awesome.
like I just looked up everything.
Did you
that
watch
I
the movie
could.
then?
I've watched the movies
Yes.
before, so I mean it's not like I
watch
haven't
them all
ever
in a
watched. I'm
row.
just not
I
like
have a
like
9-year-old
a
now, so I
fan,
feel like-
right?
yeah.
I'm just not like that's
A
not
fairy
me.
person,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I mean I do love like an enchanted forest look, but you
Yes.
know.
And the atrium again is just like, have you been in there?
Oh, yes.
Have you been to the atrium?
I have not.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
it is. It's like a secret garden. You're walking
is.
downtown,
It is a
and it's
secret
all of
garden.
the like brick building faces, and then you look into this
walk
one, and it's this just beautiful
It's just garden,
magical
yeah.
garden.
All the
with-
draping.
Yes.
It was so fantastic. But then we've also done weddings at Cameron Arts Museum.
Oh,
and
cool.
that was a lot of fun and different, you know. And I wish we could have tapped into a little bit more things there. It was their first time in many years that they had done a wedding there, so we were all trying to figure out what we could and could not do there. But it's fun to do something, you know, different.
I feel like that's the hard thing about going to venues that aren't always wedding venues. I did a wedding just this last weekend at Fort Fisher, and I've had good experiences there before, but they're kind of, I guess someone retired, so they have someone kind of filling in.
Right.
Okay, so they told the bride and groom, hey, you guys can pull around to this parking lot, this like grassy parking lot. There's a gate there. It'll be unlocked for you guys. So grandma, you don't need to rent a golf cart. We'll just, you know, you guys can pull right up front. Bride can get out. Grandma can get out right there. We get there, the gate's locked. And they call, and they don't, and you know, this is like a 20 or 30 person wedding. It was really just like, I mean, the bride forgot her flowers. She didn't have a planner. Whoops.
Okay.
Anyways, but her friend is calling Fort Fisher and saying, hey, can you guys please send someone out to open the gate? And they're like, oh, you know, we don't have anyone extra today. So like we're short staffed. So the bride and her grandma with COPD that's missing half a lung had to walk across this giant field.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. So with that being said, you know, again, Fort Fisher, they've had a bunch of weddings there, but it's not like they're really a historical place.
Right.
You know what I mean? That offers weddings.
Yeah.
And again, someone had retired. I'm sure it's just, you know, it was a miscommunication, but on your wedding day, especially had it been, I mean, there's 20, 30 people, but there was still grandma, you know,
Right.
and poor grandma. But if you have a 100-person wedding and it's kind of a shit show, you know, like you don't want that. You want to have a good venue team.
Absolutely.
And, you know, work with people. That's why we have preferred vendors. Work
Right.
with people that do this day in and day out, so that no one is dropping the ball. Not to say that Cameron Art Center did, Cameron Art Museum did, but it's just you're at maybe a higher risk for that.
There was a
that
lot
way.
of communication that had to be had, but they were open. Like, so I would just talk them through like every detail. Like, okay, well, what about this? How are we going to handle this? You know, I mean, so they were fine to work with. There was definitely some hiccups that we had to get over and some things that we had to like kind of discuss and work out. In the end, it did work out fine and beautifully. We did not have any issues with the gate being locked, thank God. And the day went swimmingly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely, you know, not necessarily like smooth sailing all the way up to that, but we did end up working well. It was just kind of rusty for them because they hadn't had anybody in that position
For
to
a while.
for a while.
Well, and I think that's the thing, like being wedding professionals, like you have to have a plan B, you have
Right.
to roll with the punches, and you have to think about things that hopefully will never happen, but you have to think about all the things that could potentially happen so that you can prevent them,
Right.
you know, from ever becoming a problem for your bride or groom.
Absolutely.
You know, and with that being said, like, you know, having tents for if it's going to rain. Do you guys do tents or no? That's
We
a
do
different, okay. That's a different, who do you use for tents now?
It really depends on where I am.
Yeah. Well, here in Wilmington,
but
I know they
here-
have pretty tents too. Like I think a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, ooh, tents, and they imagine it's going to be like
Yeah,
there's some really pretty tents out there.
And draping, right? Draping
draping,
is
yeah.
huge. It's becoming really big, especially for tents. So you can take your standard white tent and drape the heck out of it. Add some chandeliers of whatever variety you want, and you've got like a whole new
Magical
space, right?
yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
a really good point.
Obviously, you know, There's party suppliers. There's curated events. There's multiples of them. Perfect Touch Rentals is a newer company, but they also do tents.
Does Event Excellence, are they still around? Remember Perzolo? I think he became a pilot.
Event Excellence, yes. And he still does lighting, and he still
Michael
does
does?
some. Not Michael, Kenneth.
Okay.
Kenneth is who owns it now.
No, okay.
Yeah.
And
So
they do tents and draping and
I
lighting.
don't think they do tents. They just do lighting and draping.
Okay, cool.
That I am aware.
Not to like change things up, but I'm curious, what are your favorite DJs and band offerings in the area, Cherish?
That's a good. Active DJ is definitely one of our favorites. They have a variety of DJs, right?
Yeah.
So regularly we're working with Martin or Sean, but they have a lot of DJs, so that is helpful.
You need a team, really, in the wedding industry, because God forbid someone gets sick or whatever, they have someone that can fill in.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they have a lot of because they have so many people in their team, they have a lot of availability. You're not having to call like 40 DJs to try and figure it out. You can call one company.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've been really enjoying who do we have recently? Magnolia String Quartet. Like, I've been loving the live music. I love that people are putting an emphasis, again, going back to like experience. I love that people are putting more of an emphasis on like the arts and things like that, like live music, because I love a good DJ and the songs, but you hear those songs over and over again, I feel like, in the industry, so it's nice to hear some like live music.
Well, and sometimes they offer a saxophone player with them as well, so that like, you've got a live saxophone player like playing with the DJ and with the music, which is kind of cool.
Have you heard of Crispy Biscuits? Okay, and like don't let the name drive you off, because Crispy Biscuits like sounds kind of weird, but they played at a wedding recently that I had at Sycamore Bend. Really pretty venue. Have you been there? Gorgeous. But they had kind of like the hits playing, but then they had electric like fiddle and saxophone and stuff, and we're playing and like kind of creating like a funk over it. That was fun.
Yeah, that's a fun way to like
a fun thing.
Add on to like kind of having a DJ, kind of playing what you want to play, but
exactly, it was like, there's enough classics to where people could dance to it, because that's the other problem when you have like certain bands like electro funk bands that like people are like, I don't know how to dance to this.
Right.
So having something like that where it's like they can incorporate some classics, not classics, but like bangers, keep the party going.
Right.
I think it's fun because you and I obviously spend the day at the wedding, and Maggie is there before the wedding.
And we get to see all the beautiful pictures afterwards.
Yes.
Every time a bride leaves the store, I'm like, just make sure you send us your pictures. Tag us in your pictures.
Yeah.
And because that's the only time we ever get to see like the full. We have had brides come back in the store and they're like, look, we did all the things, and I'm like, oh, I love that. Thank you so much. Just because we don't get to be a part of like the full event. Now, I have been to a multitude of weddings, and because I do our social media, all my feed is weddings and wedding things and wedding ideas and trends, and I'm like, I'm already married.
I feel like it makes me like a bad wife, because I'll go to a beautiful wedding and the guy's like crying. It's the most emotional day of his life. So I just love you. I go home, look at my husband, I'm like, where's mine? Where are your tears for me?
You want to cry for me every time I walk through that door.
Yes. You just aren't as romantic anymore as this guy on his wedding day. How dare you? It's like skews what it should be like. So she was saying, people come back and tell me about the day. Are you there to set up, or do you leave the stuff for the planner to set up?
We pretty much set it up. We meet with the planner as soon as we get there and make sure that we've either already got a floor plan or that we follow their lead.
So you have all the items, and you kind of have an idea of where they're going to go beforehand, and then you just check in with the planner to see if anything has shifted beyond.
Sometimes we stay on site. It just depends, because sometimes things are moved from the time of the ceremony and going into
there's always those fun curveballs.
Yes, there are.
Love those.
Yes.
And so you guys work together a lot.
Yes.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one coming up the beginning of April.
So what does the process look like? A bride usually comes to you, and you're their planner, and you're like, hey, okay, to get your vision, we have Charlene here with Charming and Quaint Rentals that we can, rent from her. If she doesn't have it, we can have it built or whatever.
Yeah, so it depends on what package they get from us. So if we're doing design, then usually I put together like a design element, And then they're like, yes, I love that. And then I contact Charlene and I'm like, hey, Charlene, I need
So by
these items.
by design element, you mean like you kind of create like a mood board for them.
Mood board, a whole design deck is usually what. So like
to me like
17 pages.
Talk to me like I'm a bride.
So usually like a full design deck is somewhere around, 15, 17 pages, depending on what all we're doing. That includes every element that you could think of, from ceremony, from your arbor to your aisle to your chairs to, bouquets, all those things.
So a bride might come to you and say, I want a bold wedding, or I really love nature, or like, what are the terms that the brides will tell you that then you pull from?
Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. So I sent them a questionnaire that is really not very long, but it just asks questions like, what are your favorite colors? What are your favorite flowers? Where do you like to shop? What are some of your favorite pieces of furniture? How would you describe your style? Just some basic things, and favorite magazines still got. Anyhow, there's some basic questions in there that kind of give me an idea, and then I always ask, like, do you have any like photos, inspiration photos? And usually what I do is I kind of can take those photos and I can see all the patterns within those photos that they're showing me, right?
So
Plus their
interesting
words.
How like some people have been planning their wedding since they were in 6th grade, and some people are just like, I've never thought of this, and now I have a ring on my finger and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm sure some people come to you with a lot of ideas,
I
and other
do
people
have,
are like, I have no idea.
Yes, I do have a bride. As a matter of fact, she's like, I have no idea really what I want for my wedding, and so we're designing her wedding.
Cool.
And so I just kind of listened to her. We had a lot of conversations, asked about some of the things she liked, looked at some of the photos that she wanted, and we're able to come up with a great design deck for her that she loved, Wrightsville Manor. Okay. So it's coming up this summer, and I was able to like throw in, I was like, okay, I told her, I was like, look, I said, I want to do this floral piece for you. I said, nobody's done it. I've never seen it done. I said, but
surprise piece,
I know, so it's a surprise piece. And I said, let's do this, for your wedding. So your floral budget's going to be a little higher, but let's, and she's like, yes, I love it. I was like, knew you would. Like, I was like, I have no pictures. All I have are words.
I'm so excited to see all of Cherish's
I love
projects.
doing that, to being able to like, hey, let's get outside the box a little bit. But not for every wedding, right? Not every bride wants to do that, and that's okay. And
not every bride wants to do that, and then also not every bride has the budget to do that,
and that's okay too.
Yeah, I think there's like, again, going back to like having realistic expectations on, if you have the budget for it, great, let the sky be your limit. If not, there's certain things that you just don't want to cut costs on, and one of them being planner, another one being a good DJ, good food.
I would say a lot of people who come in, like, who are their first time shopping, or if they've never even looked at like a wedding website of any kind, I'm like, one of our first questions when we shop is, what's your budget? Where are we going to tap out?
Everyone wants the best that they can have for the budget that they have.
They typically don't know. They're like, oh, well, how much? What's your average? Like, what is a wedding dress cost? And I'm like, well, it's not Kleinfeld's.
Yeah.
You don't need a $20,000 budget here.
Yeah.
But we have had girls come in and say, oh, well, my budget's $10,000, and I'm like, oh, we won't even get near that.
So who are some of the designers that you have that like people might recognize, like in the $4,500 range? Do you have like Jenny Yoon?
We have like our Demetrius will have like, we have a couture collection through Demetrius that would be like more of our higher end, but then we also carry Sotero and Midgley, which is through Maggie Sotero.
Okay.
And that Sotero and Midgley is one of the gown that I was explaining with the double train.
Yeah.
She's the one that has that. Now she has the option to have a single version of that same gown, but without the extended portion of the train. But you'll see those be a little bit more expensive. But a lot of people don't understand. They're like, oh, well, I want a full long sleeve lace gown with a little bit of a train. They don't understand that, okay, well, now you've got lace down the arms, you've got lace down the back. It's going to raise your price. They'll come in and they just don't know. A lot of people just don't understand pricing.
Yeah. And how soon should they order their dress? I mean,
as soon as they know.
As soon as they know.
No, I will say, we typically say come in a year before your wear date.
Yeah.
Because some girls get portraits a month in advance.
Yeah, and the bridal portrait thing for me, because I'm from California, it's always just like...
It's such a Southern thing.
It is such a Southern thing. And I mean, as a photographer, I do love it because it gives the bride a chance to, like, you know, try on the dress, try on the look. I also, like, I've brought it up to brides that maybe are from California like me, and they're like, why? You know, are you not going to take my picture on the wedding day? I'm like, no, I'm going to take your picture on the wedding day too. But it is very much so a Southern thing.
Very Southern.
And, you know, then you have to get your dress cleaned, or like a lot of time we'll bring like a sheet or a, you know, shower
we
curtain.
say it can take up to 8 months to get a gown in, especially if you go
order it.
Yes,
Oh,
which we're seeing
wow.
a lot of those like customizations. Like we have gowns that have little cutouts that go down the hips. Well, some girls don't want them to go all the way down the hips, and we can customize that. We have to go through the designer. And that's something that's going to take a little bit longer. If your wedding's in June, I'm so sorry. I can't do that through the designer. Potentially an alterations girl can, but it can take 6 to 8 months. Now, sometimes a gown, if you have a wedding in 3 months, a gown can be hanging in stock.
Yeah,
like
or you might just have to pick something in stock if you're getting married.
Right,
I mean,
and
you know.
we have done that 1,000 times. 1,000 times over. We have had girls come in, well, my wedding's in 6 months, and I need a gown in 5 months.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, every time you're liking something, I'm at the computer looking at the inventory, like, oh, okay, yes, we can get that one. Or I'm sorry, we can only get that one in a different colorway.
Yeah.
Or it's an extra $200 to get it shipped from Canada, but it's in Canada's warehouse, but we can get it.
When there's a will, there's a way. And
I mean,
feel
we
like...
try so hard. We have tried
I
and
feel like
tried.
do have like expectations for like immediateness now with, you know, Amazon Prime. It's like, oh, we'll be delivered in 2 hours.
It's so
you know?
hard. And like a lot of girls are
hard.
so used to like, oh, well, this dress I can order right now and it'll be here next week. And it's a wedding gown. And I'm like, yeah, but you've never tried it on.
I was just going to say, I have a really hard time buying things online because I'm really weird about how fabric feels, for one. But two, you buy something online, it looks good in their pictures, and you get it, and half the time it's so cheap. Like, I think that there's still so much value, especially for bridal gowns. Like, okay, fine, buy your girl's weekend dress off of Amazon or Shein.
Exactly.
Okay.
We see a lot of reception gowns, too, that are Shein or Amazon or online.
Again, I had a thing on one of the other podcasts, like, I think everyone should have a backup dress with them because you just never know if you're going to lean forward and the zipper's going to bust, because they are not industrial zippers on bridal dresses. A lot of time if a bride's like, can you help,
they're
my mom zip it up?
invisible and they're
sketchy is what they are. Like, they're a little bit sketchy, and
then there's also 600 buttons that go over top of it.
Yeah, and I think sometimes people buy a gown thinking like, I'm going to lose 5 pounds, or they buy a gown and they gain 5 pounds or something, and then they are fitted, and if you're fluctuating even just like water weight,
a lot of girls don't understand that when they come in the store too. We measure the day you order your gown. We measure you, and when that dress comes in 5 months later, if you've lost 5 pounds, that is great. That is great. We can alter that down. But if you've gained about 15 to 20, it breaks our hearts too. Yes, but that gown does not zip.
It doesn't.
I mean, that gown will not
and
zip.
you can only take out so much.
And typically it's a half inch on either seam. Because typically this is where the problem is.
Yes. Well, that's where I feel like women we gain weight, we gain weight here first, usually,
And that's typically where the problem is, and that's like if you had a sheer corset top,
you don't want to have anything like pinching. You don't want to be uncomfortable.
I had a
especially,
bride
like, the
literally
ones,
picked up her gown the other day, and she tried it on, and I'm talking it zipped. She was in it, and she looked amazing. But she was like, I should have got the different size. I should have got the size up. My mom was telling me to do this. And she's like full panicking by herself. And I'm like, hey, let's take a deep breath. I said, you were in a completely sheer corseted top. I said, that fabric's going to give. You have to try this on 3 more times. You've got to get fitted in it. You've got to pick it up, and then you'll wear it your wedding day. And by the end of her appointment, I think she was in the gown for maybe 20 minutes. And this was just a pickup appointment. I brought her to the front, and like I took a picture of her from the back, and I gave her phone, and I was like, how do you feel? She was like, thank you so much.
Oh, because it had
already given out and relaxed a little bit, and I was like, "You just
see." And you've been doing this for 8 years, so you're
and
able
that's what
to,
I told her.
You're able to talk to brides and reassure them.
Yeah.
And Cherish, as far as like planning florals, what would be kind of? I know you guys have other places you have to go, but just what are things that you feel like brides don't really know, or couples in general, I guess I should say, not just brides, but couples. Misconceptions in the planning process. I know a lot of times they think that a planner, a coordinator rather, is a planner, and that those are 2 different things. Like you said, the design portion of it. But what are things like, what would be your piece of advice for clients like that you wish that everyone would, would know or be aware of?
Right. Obviously, you need at the very least, a coordinator. But yeah, knowing the difference between the coordinator and planner, which we do try to do a very good job of educating them, because they don't know. They don't know what they're going into. Most clients, and budget like that. Like we've all heard, like they don't necessarily have a realistic expectation of what budget can be, and so that is one of the first things also that I try to educate them on. Like, okay, if this is what you're dealing with, this is what budget you're looking for.
Or these are areas that you can cut comfortably.
Exactly.
Like, hey, you don't need a 6-tier cake.
Right.
You can do a little stand of, assorted cookies and things like that.
Right,
No one
exactly.
really eats cake anymore.
No.
Well, and a lot of times they're basing it on what their mother,
Yes.
their mother did,
wanted.
and what she had, and what that budget was.
Yeah.
And it's nowhere.
Yes. Oh, my sister got married 6 years ago. Well, the budget is drastically different 6 years
So
ago than what
much
it
Well,
is
the cost
today.
of living is drastically different
Yeah.
than
It
6 years
really
ago,
is.
too.
Everything
So,
Everything.
and even just paying employees, like we were saying, you have guys that come out and set these things up. What might have been, hey, $15 an hour for movers a few years ago is now $25 an hour for
You're
movers.
right.
And that trickles down to everything and everyone.
Exactly.
Your gas is higher, so it's going to take, it's going to cost more to get it there, pick it up.
Yep, and even just, things that are being shipped from different places. I know now we're gonna, I think, have tariffs, and buying new things. The price of building things has gone up. Wood's gone up.
Yes, it has.
So when you go to build a bar, instead of it being, X amount, it's now double that.
That's
because wood is that much more. So, yeah, I think budget is one of the more like the bigger.
And it's one of the hardest topics
It is
to
a
talk
hard
about.
topic.
It really
I
is.
mean,
Well,
even in like regular relationship with people, I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to talk about like a budget.
Yeah. Well, and I think, brides and grooms or couples in general that have family that is helping them, or if they're a little bit older and more established, or maybe just have the means, they don't worry about it as much.
Right.
But, reality wise, I would say 90% of Americans are having to at least pay somewhat attention to their budget and somewhat attention to the money that they spend. So having a planner helps them work out where they can save, where they might want to splurge more.
Right.
And
Exactly.
and then even like things like getting married on a weekday. Do you offer
Yes.
weekday discounts?
Oh, absolutely.
Because Saturdays in May, you are not getting a discount for a Saturday in May anywhere in this town, because people are just fully booked.
And on the planning side, obviously we're not going to have a discount regardless of what day of the week, because the
Service is
service
still there.
is still there. The job is still the same regardless of what day of the week. Now, obviously, in like the prime months, or if you're going to have a holiday wedding, then obviously I'm going to have to increase my price because I have to find staff. And
Yes.
right?
Yeah, and the bigger the event, you
the
need
bigger
more
the
staff.
event, the more staff, and same thing. I have to pay them the money that they're worth. And so.
Well, this has been so fun. I really
Yes.
appreciate you guys coming and
Thank you,
enlightening
Jen.
me about things
lot of
like
fun.
dresses. I feel like these are
Yes.
in rentals. I feel like some of these things, like as a photographer, I don't really dive into. I see the dress and it's a beautiful dress, and I know things that, again, I would suggest to brides based on my experience as a photographer.
Right.
But I wouldn't have even thought that it could take 8 months to get a dress
Yeah.
in, that's
Oh, yeah.
that's wild. So earlier is better. In the planning process,
With
I'm
all
sure
of us.
with
Yeah,
all
honestly,
of us.
as
all
soon
of
as
us,
you're ready.
yeah,
Everything,
As soon as
everything,
As
yes.
soon as you're ready, come in.
Well, thank you guys. I
Thank you so
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
having me.
Thank you.